let's get really practical. So you've got the ultimate focus framework. It's something you've put together. It's a result of neuroscience and psychology and your own lived experience, and it's all come together. It has three core pillars. Before we get into any of the detail, perhaps you can just touch on what those three core pillars are.
Yeah. So the ultimate focus framework has three main pillars. The first one is the habit shift, the one we've been talking about the most, and
Yep.
we'll go into it deeper. And then the second one is the fear reframe. And then the third one is the motivation builder. So the three together work really cohesively because habit shift is focused on systems and structure. So we've talked about the mental stage. There's also the habit loop, and then how to design your time and your day. So you have that structure and routine, and therefore you build a habit. And then you automate the way you run your time. So it becomes more of a habit.
Right.
That's the habit shift. So that's the system. And then you have the fear reframe. I see fear reframe as is the mindset and our reactions and emotions. And it's more of an underlayer that touches on the habit shift and the day to day side of things, but also the motivation builder, which is long term life and planning and purpose. Because we have our fears, let's say, fear from failure at work, fear from being seen, fear from under delivering, fear from being criticized or judged. And we react based on those fears. But we also have,
Interesting.
yeah, and we also have fears that are sort of more life impacting. So fear of death, for example, fear of not being enough, fear of not belonging. And those are the fears that are sort of, we're thinking about them in the background and they impact more of our long term life planning. So fear
So,
comes
so,
in
you, so
different.
you- you're saying that those fears, which I think a lot of people will relate to,
Mhm.
come to play and they
Yeah.
drive what I'm doing immediately because of
Mhm.
those fears.
Yes, absolutely. And the fear can also be categorized into three main areas. At a very, very high level, you could say that fears can be answered or can be looked at in under three questions.
Right.
Am I safe? Am I loved? And do I belong? And am I enough? And does my life matter?
Okay. So when you say safe in the context of work, what do you mean by safe?
So that could be financial security.
Okay. So it's sort
Yeah.
of everything that if you're worried about, yeah, I don't know,
Losing
maybe
your
you,
job, for example.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The impact of losing my job. Therefore I can't afford my mortgage or my rent or whatever it is. And therefore my life is not safe. Yeah.
hmm I see this a lot when a company going through a restructure and everyone's job feels that it's at risk.
Yeah.
And therefore, you start to feel that maybe you need to be reactive to everything that is thrown at you and accept all the work because you don't want to lose your job.
Right. It's almost like
Yeah.
a hyper version of what we talked about earlier on, which
Yeah.
is I must respond to my boss within 5 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you can see that as well. I mean, we've covered kind of workplace scenarios, but even if we think about entrepreneurs and founders, for example, that also manifests when they are constantly kind of raising funds or have limited funds. So they become more reactive to their environment because they are worried that they might not be able to afford the
Right.
next season in their business.
Yeah. And
So
then start
maintenance.
laying people off, etc. And then
Yeah.
that fear, of course, will drive your behaviors. I
Yeah,
understand that. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, making certain decisions that are in the benefit of the long term of the company, just because of that fear of financial fear or fear of survival, or
Yeah.
maybe even feeling internally that am I enough as a founder to run this?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love those
yeah,
three fears. And I think if people are honest, they've all got them at different
yeah,
degrees and they all feel them. So yeah. So we've covered this habit shift, and we will get into the habit shift a lot more because it's something that people can apply today. And we've talked about this fear reframing, and it's interesting. I've never thought of this before, but if people who are listening or watching are honest, they recognize those three fears, and they've all got them in some degree. But that's not enough, is it? Because you need to be able to, you need some kind of a sense of motivation,
yeah,
and you've got this motivation builder. What's that?
yeah. So, motivation builder is around life purpose and doing the work that matters. So, in the motivation builder, I focus on multiple tools, but the three main ones are the logotherapy. So, that's the therapy by a guy called, or a doctor called, Viktor Frankl. And he's a Holocaust survivor, and he has a very interesting story of how, through life purpose and hope, he stayed alive during being in a concentration camp. So, logotherapy focuses on the idea that purpose, or wanting a life purpose and a reason for our existence, is more important than just the wanting power or pleasure in life. Which there are
Right.
other thoughts in therapy and psychology that talk more about that.
So
So that's
power,
the idea.
pleasure, and purpose is the three
Yeah.
P's I heard. Is that right? Yep.
Yes. But logotherapy is more purpose focused.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a motivation that kind of drives us in life. So under that tool, I go through things like live, love, and legacy.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's a good practice to kind of affirming your and shaping your life mission and your life purpose.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's part of motivation building. There are other tools, such as there's a one I actually really like by Debbie Millman. She's a designer and a podcaster. I believe she has one of the oldest podcasts ever. It's called Design Matter. And she has this tool. It's called 10 years life plan, or 10-year plan for an incredible life, or remarkable life, actually, to be correct. And it's about thinking very long term and planning with letting your imagination go and just thinking what a life could like in 10 years time. And then I
Right.
have other tools like the life priorities, and what are your top 5 priorities in life. That's one of the tools that I um, borrowed and I use from my coach, my life coach, Brendan J. Fox. He's a mental toughness coach that used to train athletes, Olympic athletes.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of amazing tools that I've actually learned from him. So that's the idea of it, is crystallizing your life purpose and having that motivation that keeps you going, and tackling the fears around it as well as part of that fear reframe. So purpose, mindset, the fear side of things, and the systems, which is the habit shift. Those three
Right.
together are the perfect recipe for ultimately owning your focus.
Right. And you've left the core of this, haven't you, in the download that people can download from
Yes.
the show afterwards, buildyouredge.org/downloads. But
Mhm.
today we're going to dive deep into one of them, which is this habit builder.